Welcome to the Randy Gravitt Leadership Podcast, where we help you lead the hardest person you will ever lead, yourself. Here's your host, someone who believes leadership begins at home, Randy Gravitt.
It's Thanksgiving week, and it's my favorite week of the year. In fact, Thanksgiving Day is my favorite holiday of the year, and for several reasons. I love getting together with people and having family over. Our girls will come home with their husbands. It'll be a fantastic week. I'm hoping you've got some fun stuff planned, some people to be with and hang out. But Thanksgiving has another really special meaning for me. It's the day I got engaged to my wife. It was Thanksgiving Day when I proposed, and so always remember that day. And just it was cool. She said yes, and we've been together for a long time, and I'm really thankful for this week. It makes me think of all the things I'm thankful for as well. I think that's another thing I think about it. It slows me down and reminds me that life is not really about me. There's so many things that help us as leaders get to where we want to go. And we've been talking about that these last few weeks. How do we get to the next level? How do we level up in our leadership? And on the podcast and on our coaches' corners and the things we've been wrestling with together, trying to learn, how do we lead ourselves? How do we win this war we're in against ourselves? The hardest person we'll ever lead. We've been learning some things this month in November about really trying to lead at that next level. And we talked about the power of focus. We talked about urgency, if you remember that from week 2. And then last week, we really talked about the power of community and the people around you that help you get where you want to go. Today, I've got a fourth thing, and I think in keeping with this idea of Thanksgiving, but it's a little bit of a nuance. And I think this is one of the things that leaders underestimate, how it helps them go up in their leadership or rise up in their leadership. And it's the idea of humility. I think humility is one of the things that helps us take another step up that staircase to get to the landing, to position us to make the next climb. As leaders, we're constantly climbing, trying to get to another place, and in a good way. I understand you can just be on a hamster wheel in a rat race, and that's not what we're talking about. We really are trying to climb and get to a place where we're better than we've ever been. We're trying to improve ourselves. We're trying to grow so we can help more people. Our motive has to be right in doing that. But humility is one of the things that really helps us go to that next level, because when we're humble, we realize that it's really not about us. It's about others. That's one of the things that makes it such a powerful idea. This week, as you think about humility, it should tie into the concept of gratefulness. What is it that you're grateful for this week? What are you thankful for? I think grateful is actually a better word than thankful. Grateful just has this more powerful piece to it. I think it's easy to look at somebody that do something and you say thank you, but gratefulness is more in the heart. It's not just like, I appreciate you doing it, but it's like, really, I feel indebted to you. I realize I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for you, some of those kind of things. So humility is so important for a leader. Now, like we have the last couple of weeks, if you remember on the focus week, we talked about we got to be aware of distractions. There's this fatal side of focus. It's distraction. And then on urgency, if you remember when we talked about urgency, we have this tendency, if we're not careful, to become complacent. And then last week on community, we also reminded leaders, if you're not careful, you can find yourself in isolation. So community is kind of the antidote to that. Community will help you climb. Isolation, like these other fatal flaws of distraction and complacency, they cause us to go down a rung. And so this week, when we think about humility, you probably can fill in the blank of what it is that pulls us down, but it's pride. Pride, there's so much been written on this idea of pride, but pride goes before a fall. We've heard that before, and we've all seen people that are, they're really proud, they're all bragging, they're talking smack, and all of a sudden they hit their downfall, and we're like, oh, okay, well, we saw that sort of coming. There's no way you're going to stay at the top. It's great to try to climb the top, but you all know we're going to have setbacks and we're going to have times where we're going to have to be resilient and all this kind of thing. It's so much better to be humble along the way, or to have this spirit of humility, than this spirit of arrogance or pride. I'm reminded of the words of C.S. Lewis, who said it this way. He said, "Pride looks down on others." Do you find yourself ever looking down on someone else? Maybe there's somebody who is not as impressive as you, or doesn't have something you have, or you have a position that you've been given, or maybe there's just somebody who's really struggling right now and you have this, I mean, you wouldn't say you look down on them, but you compare yourself and you think, man, I would never be like that. And that's pride showing up. And if we're not careful, we can have this arrogant side that we think we're better than someone else. If we think about it, humility wants to get it right. Pride worries about who's right, and we want to be right when we're proud. And so, do you want to get it right, or do you want to be right? There's a difference. And so, I want to challenge you to really do some examination on your heart. One of the things you should do if you've got a little extra time this week with the holidays is pull back and say, okay, am I really walking in humility? Do I appreciate the things around me? Or, do I just need to be right? Do I need to be in charge? Do I need to be in control? Those are indicators of pride, and pride always goes, again, before the fall. And so if we're going to embrace pride and we're going to, it's going to be all about us, don't be surprised if you find yourself slipping soon. A few weeks ago, you'll recall Dan Webster was on our Friday interview for a couple of weeks, and I just heard him say recently, I'm not sure if this is original to him, but I thought this was fantastic. He said, pride fills space, humility creates space for the other person. And so as you look at your leadership, you look at your life, are you creating space for those around you? That community that we talked about last week, it can actually grow if we live with humility and we create space for seeing the other person, for listening to the other person, for loving the other person. You're going to have all kind of chances this week as you go into Thanksgiving week to really see people, to serve people, to love people, to grieve with people, to celebrate people, like we talked about in the focus or in the community episode that we did. And so how are you doing when it comes to this humility versus pride? Humility will help you go up a layer in your leadership. I like this mindset of humility, seeing others as helping you get to where you are. Pride, on the other hand, it has this mindset of, I think I'm better than someone else, and that's just not the way it is. We're all equal, and we're all created in the image of God. The Bible says, if you read the Bible, it's and I think we have such division because people look down on each other. It's just not the way it's supposed to be. So I want to encourage you today, especially this week, to think about the things you're grateful for. Think about the people who helped you get where you are. I mentioned this in a episode last week, that there are people that have helped me get to where I am, and you're going to have a chance this week to thank some people, or at least be mindful of some people who maybe not even are around anymore that helped you get where you are. The best thing that we could do this week is walk in humility. Now, as we think about who helped us get where we're going, I think it's tempting to believe that our business, our life, our leadership, all those things are because we're really smart and we have great ideas and we create great products and all those kind of things. And that's fantastic. I'm proud of you. I love what you're doing. Whatever it is you're doing, that's great. Some of you are teaching, and some of you are speaking, and some of your lawyers and doctors and your executives and your coaches of professional sports teams. All kind of people listening, and you do great stuff and you have really important positions. That's good. But do you recall a few weeks ago when Rebecca was on our Friday podcast? She talked about her high school art teacher, and this kind of sounds random, but here's what Rebecca said. She said her teacher had reminded them that the best artists are thieves, which sounded kind of crazy when you heard that. But truthfully, all of us are benefiting today from what someone else has done. We get our ideas, we get our help, we get our support, we get our inspiration from a lot of times what someone else has done. Or as I heard one leader say, we all stand on the shoulders of someone else. And so as you think about Thanksgiving this week, I want you to remind yourself that you are where you are because of what somebody else did. And I think when we realize that, it is hard for us to not be grateful and to not be thankful. years ago, my dad was in a boat on a lake here north of Atlanta in February. He was with his buddy and they were doing some fishing. And my dad and this guy see this other boat. It's really cold. This other boat is in distress. It's kind of spinning around, and they go over. They drive their boat over. They're actually getting ready to finish their day and take the boats out. But they see this boat that's in distress, and they pull over there, and there's nobody in the boat. And they look, and there's a guy down in the water, and there's another guy who is trapped in the propeller of the boat that's spinning around. And he's hung in this thing. And long story short, my dad and this other guy and a couple other guys that show up, they end up pulling this guy out of the water. And my dad actually does CPR on the guy and saves the guy's life. It was pretty incredible stories in the news, all kinds of stuff going on. And it was wild. A few weeks later, this guy shows up after a week in the hospital. And, he actually had died, they said. I mean, he was gone for about 6 minutes. My dad revives him with, these guys that are there. And this guy shows up at my house, and he's got a little plaque that just says, "Thanks for saving my life." And my mom still got that plaque. I saw it just a few weeks ago, and I saw some clippings from the newspaper of this story. And I think about what my dad told me. He just, and my dad was kind of a humble guy, but he said this guy was just so grateful, which who wouldn't be grateful when, somebody saved their life? That's a pretty extreme example here, but somebody has given you the opportunity to have life. Somebody has served you, loved you. I think about all the Thanksgivings that I have attended with my mom and all the cooking and cleaning and things behind the scene. And now that I'm older and we have kids, and you get a chance as a parent to serve unconditionally, hopefully. But as you think about the people who have put you in the place you are right now, who is it that's given you life? Who saved your life? Some people might even have, maybe not, they hadn't pulled you out of a lake and, done CPR, but you know what? There's some of you that are listening. You wouldn't be where you are. Or you might not even be around if it weren't for some leader who invested in you. So I would encourage you this week, be thankful, be grateful, be humble, and remember that it really is not about you. And then I would encourage you to encourage someone else, to understand how powerful it is when you lead yourself well and you have your character in line with where it should be, and you're a skilled leader. You keep leveling up, you keep getting to that next level. You actually are having tremendous influence, and you're giving life to those around you. So I encourage you to do that this week. I'm thankful for you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing with your friends. We're growing because of you, but I hope you're growing too. I hope this week you will really make sure that Thanksgiving Day is a day where you're not just thankful, but you are grateful. You are humble. If you will do that, I'm convinced you can level up. Don't let pride pull you down. See others as more important than yourself. If you will, your leadership value will go to a whole nother level.
Thanks for listening to the Randy Gravitt Leadership Podcast. Please help us spread the word by sharing today's episode with your friends and coworkers. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel on Spotify or through iTunes. You'll find all the links on the media tab at randygravitt.com. Now, let's go apply what we've learned and lead ourselves well. Remember, leadership begins at home.